What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Hot Take. Today we are in a 2012 Mustang Boss 302. This is a performance pack offered by Ford that gets you a bunch of cool little bits, various suspension pieces, a little more power, kind of improves the Mustang in a lot of various ways. And of course you get these super cool Boss 302 seats, the badging around the car. This particular car is tuned and is making, I was told conservatively, about 450 wheel horsepower. This is going to be my first experience with the good old American V8 muscle. I'm very excited. Let's go ahead and hop on the road. We'll talk about this car, talk about the Mustang. Clutch is heavy. That was another thing too. This car has an aftermarket clutch. It's quite heavy. Hopefully get used to it. The shifter is also very notchy. Very sporty feeling though. I like it. Okay, a little bit of a rough start by myself here. And once you're going, not hard to drive at all. So, some things I want to talk about with the Mustang today. So a common theme with these older Mustangs, and a big topic people talk about a lot, is them being live axle. So a big stereotype with these Mustangs, we all know the Mustang going into the crowd, hitting a bunch of people, yada yada yada. And the big reason for that is because the rear suspension is live axle. Let's try 5 real quick. There we go. Beautiful. So the reason live axle is such a big deal with these cars is because it makes the rear end, if you're not driving carefully, a lot more of a handful. And that's why people commonly crash them, because the Mustangs are cheap, people are bad drivers, they get in performance cars they aren't ready for. But does it really hurt the driving experience? That's what I want to find out today. So, some initial impressions. First of all, the driver's controls. It does have an aftermarket clutch, and on top of having an aftermarket clutch that is heavier, the helper spring is removed. Clutch is very heavy. The shifter is also really notchy. It has a nice feedback to it. The ride quality, though, isn't that bad. This does have aftermarket suspension, although the owner told me he didn't really notice much of a change in how it drove, ride quality, that sort of thing over stock. So we're just gonna say it's stock for the sake of the video. The driver's feedback is all there. The steering feedback too, well, give it a little bit here. It's pretty good. Not too much dead on center. It's pretty responsive. Overall, a very nice experience. The gas pedal is a little bit of a thing to get used to though, especially in this car because the clutch is so heavy, the gas pedal's so light. So I'm kind of finding, when I was taking off, I was really struggling to get the clutch work correctly because of the difference in the pedal weights. And pair that with the clutch being really touchy, but that one's more specific to the clutch and not to the car. Give it a downshift here. Downshifts are not that hard, which is nice. Get in the brakes a little bit. Brake pedal feels actually surprisingly spongier than I would have expected from a performance car like this. It has good bite once you get into it, but you gotta get into it a little bit before you start feeling the bite. What's crazy about this car is how much torque it has. I mean, I'm literally riding at 3,000 RPM, and I'm not looking for more. But we will downshift, and oh yeah, that's got a really good sound there when you get into it. Surprised how quiet this thing is in the inside with the windows rolled up. I bet that's why a lot of Mustang guys have their cars so loud, because they can't hear it from the inside if they don't. It's very quiet and insulated in here. Ooh, those are some nice downshifts. Got a little bit of pops at the end. That's a very potent amount of power. You really don't need the RPM, but if you want to get into it, the RPM is there and you have the power. So I don't know a ton about Mustangs from this era, other than that I kind of like them and like them more now that I'm driving this one. But I do believe this one has a higher red line than the stock GT. But these Coyotes are known for kind of having a higher red line. Going around these turns, it hugs the corners nicely. So it has the torque you want, it has the power. Suspension, so far, I think, is a lot better than most people make them out to be. People say that Mustangs handle like garbage. This one certainly does not. It's very confidence inspiring in these back roads. And maybe that's part of the problem with the Mustang, is that it is easy to drive. So it makes you overconfident in it. Although I would say I don't think it's really a problem with this. For most enthusiasts. That clutch engagement is immediate. You go from 3 to 4, you let off, instant. It almost feels like flat foot shifting. Going over a rough patch of road here, the ride quality is surprisingly good actually. Not too jarring, too stiff. The suspension is set up very nicely for this car. You really could daily drive one of these from a comfort standpoint. Going back to the driver's feedback a little bit, the steering feel. So the steering feel itself is not that great, but the suspension communicates to you so nicely that it doesn't really hurt the overall experience of the car. The suspension communicates to you enough, you know where the car is going to go. The steering, while not having a ton of road feel, has a little bit, and it's just enough for you to still feel like you're actively engaged in the car. Touch and clutch. I'm smiling like a little girl right now. The sound, the power, it's all there. This is why people like the Mustang. I also see how that could absolutely get away from you if you are not paying attention. It is instant torque. I mean, you lay your foot into it, you kind of roll up to it like I did, and oh man. That is some crazy power. There really is nothing like that, especially JDM, Euro cars. Nope. Nope. They don't have anything on this car. It is instant power. As I was just saying before I interrupted myself with another pull, I can see if you're mid-turn, steering wheel is not fully straight, and you kind of lay into that gas, oh, it'll send you sideways really quickly. I mean, it's instant torque. You have no warning. If you put your foot down, you have to be ready for it. It is going to come whether you are wanting it or not. Hopefully you will be wanting it because you put your foot down, but I digress. That is an experience. I also love the shifter. We'll try a second. Oh, there we go. Sweet. Getting the hang of this car, guys. The shifter is immediate. A lot of European and Japanese cars, they kind of want you to give it a second when you shift it. This one, no. It wants you to throw it in, let out the clutch, and go. The rhythm of this car is go, go, go. Faster, 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 faster. Man, I'll never use that clutch bite point. Despite the clutch being so hard and the shifter being so notchy though, well, and heavy, it's pretty easy to drive. I'm surprised. The owner told me the clutch is heavy. I pushed it in, I'm like, uh-oh, it's gonna be one of these videos. But it's not hard at all. Circling back to the live axle discussion, I don't really think that live axle hurts the way this car drives noticeably enough for you to not want the car. Sure, the new Mustang's IRS, but the new Mustang's going after the European sports cars. That's what that Mustang's going for. It's also why it's so expensive now. But old classic American muscle car, live axle suspension, it's fine. You just have to know the limits of the car. Don't throw it around like you're a race car driver in the street if you don't know the limits. And have fun. That's what Mustangs are all about. This thing would be so much fun on the track, no doubt. And the power, I mean, there's so much of it there. I haven't driven a ton of really high horsepower cars to give it a reference, but 450 wheels sounds right. I love that V8 induction sound too. Once you get into the brakes, they have enough bite there. I don't want to say they feel like performance car brakes because they don't feel really bitey, but I think that's part of the design. They have enough bite there so that when you need them, you got the brake pedal, but they don't feel unwieldy or impossible to drive on a street car. It really is just kind of a nice medium. Final hot take, everybody. I would say the Mustang Boss 302 is really rowdy. It's only, I say only 450 wheel, but relative to new cars, like a lot of new cars say they make 500, 600 horsepower, whatever. They're very fast, but this is a different type of 450 wheel. This is only a 2012, which is just a little over 10 years old, but this was still kind of in an era where they still allowed you to kind of get rid of a lot of the driver helps, no lane keep assist. I had for some of the drive, the traction control off, the stability control on. You can turn that off and make this thing a complete handful. But it was very rowdy, very fun, and I do think that if you are driving it with care and driving it like the performance card is, the suspension, being live axle, is not a problem whatsoever. But with that, let's go ahead and give it a score. Utility. The Mustang Boss 302 is surprisingly comfortable, low wind noise, and a good ride quality. Trunk space is average for a sports car like this, however the rear seat room is worth mentioning. My legs actually have more space than I'd expect, and headroom is about as bad as I expected. I'll give the Mustang a 4.5 out of 10. Features. The Mustang has your average level of features for a car of this year. No touchscreen puts this car behind modern cars, but I actually find the center console stack to be laid out well and easy to understand. Materials are also fine. Some cheap plastic, but the seats are a plus, and it's pretty standard. It gets 4.5 out of 10. MPG. The EPA rates this Mustang at 17 city and 26 highway, with a combined of 20. Surprisingly good for a V8 car like this, it gets 5 out of 10. Cool factor. This Mustang, age-wise, is in that awkward spot where it really isn't a classic, but it isn't new either. Is usually what I would say for a car like this. But with technology moving so fast and this being close to the end of the line for the old-style Mustang, pairing that with it also being an homage to the original Boss 302, I think there's something to be said about this being a future classic. I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Driver's feedback. The suspension communicates really nicely to the driver, and the shifter feels exactly what you would want from a car like this. Heavy, but mechanical and not too notchy. However, the steering is a little numb relative to some of the other older enthusiast cars, and I think the pedal feel holds this car back. The clutch was fine, but the gas pedal was a low point. Too vague and not substantial enough, in my opinion, for a car like this. I think the gas pedal paired with the instant torque is really what makes these commonly crashed by less experienced drivers. However, I'll still give it a 6 out of 10. Acceleration. In stock form, this Mustang does 0 to 60 in 4.3 seconds. This one is making more than that. The 60 to 100 is very fast. Comparing it to the E60 M5 we drove previously, this has a lot more punch down low, but I think up top they're pretty similar, so I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10. Should you buy it? This is a great performer with a cool name and a cool history. Mustangs from this era are also not known for many problems. However, they are expensive. Most lower mileage ones like this are listed at $30,000 or more, which is a lot for an 11-year-old Mustang. I'll give it a 9 out of 15, putting it here on our list. We do not have a lot of other American V8 sports cars to compare it to. The score is very similar to the E46 M3. While the E46 M3 is not as quick or dailyable, it does offer more driver's feedback and just feels more special from the driver's seat. Overall, the Mustang Boss 302 is a great sports car. The live axle topic has been debated for years, but I now believe that most people complaining about it either haven't driven one or they haven't driven a nice one that was sorted like this car. We will see how I feel about this car after driving some more American muscle cars, but there's a reason the Mustang is so loved, and I think that this one is no exception.